Your neighbor just pulled up in a brand new BMW 7 Series. Beautiful car, right? Except here's what you don't see. He's now paying $1,200 a month for the next 6 years on a depreciating asset. He put down $15,000 he pulled from his emergency fund, and his insurance just jumped to $320 a month. That's $18,240 a year just to look like he's doing well. Meanwhile, the actual millionaire, 3 doors down, still driving that 2015 Honda Accord. And that gap between appearance and reality, it's not just costing you money, it's literally stealing your future. Hi, I'm Sam. Today, I'm going to reveal how the obsession with looking rich is quietly trapping most people in a financial prison. I'll break down the real numbers, the math that actually matters, not the vague guesses you usually hear. I'll also dive into the psychology behind why we do this, because knowing why is just as important as knowing what. Most importantly, I'll show you how to escape this trap before it stops you from building real, lasting wealth. This isn't just about avoiding mistakes, it's about creating something meaningful and lasting. Look, I need to start with something that might make you uncomfortable. According to a 2023 study by the Federal Reserve, 63% of Americans couldn't cover a $500 emergency expense with cash. 63%. But here's the part that makes this truly insane. The average American also spends $1,497 per year on non-essential clothing alone, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We're literally prioritizing how we look over whether we can survive an emergency. And it gets worse. The average monthly car payment in the United States hit $739 in 2024 for new vehicles. For used, it's $532. Now, let me ask you something. Do you think people are buying these cars because they need them or because they want to project an image? Because here's the thing. Transportation is necessary. A $60,000 SUV financed at 7% interest, that's not about transportation. That's about what the person in the next lane thinks of you at the stoplight. Let me show you the math on this, because this is where it gets truly devastating. Let's say you're 28 years old and you decide you want to look successful. So you make these choices. Instead of buying a reliable $15,000 used car in cash, you finance a $45,000 luxury vehicle. That's a $700 monthly payment for 72 months. Instead of the $1,400 per month apartment that meets your needs, you rent the trendy place downtown for $2,200 because it has the aesthetic. That's an extra $800 a month. You're spending $400 per month on maintaining the image, designer labels, accessories, the latest tech, and you're eating out constantly, going to expensive brunch spots, traveling for the Instagram shots. Let's say $600 a month. That's an extra $1,900 per month you're spending purely on appearance, nearly $23,000 per year. Now, here's where this gets heartbreaking. If you took that $1,900 per month and invested it instead in a simple index fund averaging 10% annual returns, which is literally the historical average of the S&P 500, do you know what you'd have in 30 years? $3.97 million. Let me say that again. Almost $4 million. That's not a typo. That's basic compound interest. You're not just spending $23,000 a year. You're giving up $3.97 million. That's the actual cost of looking rich in your 20s and 30s. And that $3.97 million, at a 4% safe withdrawal rate, that's $158,800 per year in passive income, forever. So what you're really choosing is this: look rich now, work until you're 70. Or look normal now, retire at 55 with more money than you know what to do with. Okay, so if the math is this clear, why do we still do it? Why do intelligent people make these choices? It comes down to something psychologists call social signaling. We're hardwired to care what our tribe thinks of us, because evolutionarily, being rejected from the tribe meant death. So our brains are constantly scanning. Am I respected? Am I valued? Do I belong? And in modern society, we've attached wealth to status and status to survival. When you see someone with a luxury car or designer bag, your brain interprets that as this person has resources, this person is winning. I need to signal the same thing to be valued. There's also this thing called the spotlight effect, studied by researchers at Cornell. We massively overestimate how much people notice us. You think everyone's looking at your car, your watch, your apartment. In reality, they're too busy worrying about whether they look successful enough. Here's the brutal truth. The people who are actually impressed by your luxury purchases, they're usually in the same financial trap you are. The people who've built real wealth, they see right through it. They know exactly what you're sacrificing for that image. But the damage goes beyond the obvious math. Looking rich creates secondary costs that multiply the problem. First, there's the maintenance trap. You don't just buy the luxury car, you have to maintain it. Premium gas, higher insurance, expensive repairs. According to AAA, luxury vehicle ownership costs average $1,200 to $1,500 per month when you factor in everything. That's almost as much as many people's rent. Second, lifestyle inflation becomes inevitable. You can't drive a $70,000 car to a cheap apartment. You can't wear designer clothes to a budget restaurant. Each upgrade forces the next upgrade. Psychologists call this the Diderot effect. One purchase creates a spiral of related purchases to maintain consistency. Third, and this is the one nobody talks about, it kills your options. When you're locked into high fixed expenses to maintain an image, you can't take the career risk. You can't start the business. You can't take the pay cut for the job you'd actually love. You're trapped in the golden handcuffs, working to pay for the appearance of success rather than building actual success. Here's what's fascinating. If you study actual millionaires, people with a net worth of $1 to $10 million, the data shows something completely different from what we imagine. According to the Millionaire Next Door research, the typical millionaire drives a car that's 4 to 6 years old, lives in a house worth less than $400,000, spends less than $200 on a watch, and buys most clothes off the rack. The single biggest predictor of whether someone builds wealth isn't their income. It's whether they live below their means consistently over time. Look, I've met people making $250,000 a year who are living paycheck to paycheck, and I've met people making $65,000 who are millionaires by 50. The difference? The millionaire was invisible. You'd walk right past them and never know they had money. Let me reframe this entire conversation around something that actually matters: freedom. What if instead of asking, how do I look successful, you asked, how do I become free? Financial freedom means you have enough money invested that the returns cover your living expenses. At that point, you work because you want to, not because you have to. The formula is straightforward. If you need $50,000 per year to live and you're using the 4% safe withdrawal rate, you need $1.25 million invested. That's your freedom number. Now, here's the math that should change everything. If you're spending $23,000 per year on looking rich and you need $50,000 per year to live, you could actually live on $27,000 per year. That means your freedom number isn't $1.25 million, it's $675,000. You just cut your required wealth nearly in half. And if you're investing that $23,000 per year at 10% returns, you hit $675,000 in just 17 years. You could be financially free in your mid-40s, not working until you're 65, actually free in your 40s. Or you can drive the nice car and work until you're 70. Here's what finally made this click for me. I was talking to a guy who'd spent 15 years in corporate finance, making $180,000 to $200,000 a year. Beautiful house, right cars, all of it. From the outside, incredibly successful. Then he said something I'll never forget. I spent 15 years building a prison and calling it success. Every upgrade was another bar on the cage. He'd realized that despite making nearly $3 million in gross income over 15 years, he had less than $150,000 saved. Every raise led to a lifestyle upgrade. He'd climbed the ladder, increased his income dramatically, and ended up less free because his expenses climbed even faster. He'd realize that every dollar he spent on appearance was a dollar he had to earn, and every dollar he had to earn was time he had to sell. He traded his time, the only truly finite resource he had, for the approval of people he didn't even like. Okay, so how do you actually break free from this? Let's talk real, actionable solutions. First, calculate your freedom gap. Figure out your current annual expenses, then subtract out everything that's purely for appearance. That's how much you actually need. Most people find they could live on 40 to 50% less if they stopped performing wealth. Second, do the invisibility challenge. For 90 days, make yourself financially invisible. Don't buy anything that's meant to be seen. No status purchases, just functional. You'll be shocked how little anyone notices and how much money you keep. Third, redirect one major expense. You don't have to change everything overnight. Just pick the biggest appearance cost, usually the car or housing, and optimize it. Trade down once. Take the difference and automate the investment. That single change often accounts for 60 to 70% of the potential savings. Fourth, build your Screw You fund. Start with $1,000, then $5,000, then 6 months of expenses in cash. Once you have it, the psychological shift is massive. You stop being afraid. You stop needing to impress people because you have security. Fifth, track net worth, not income. Stop measuring success by how much you make or spend. Track net worth. Assets minus liabilities. That's the only number that matters. When you watch it grow month after month, the dopamine hit from buying stuff fades. The real satisfaction comes from watching the number go up. Look, I know this is hard to hear. We've been conditioned our entire lives to equate consumption with success. But here's the reframe that changes everything. Looking rich is easy. Anyone with a credit card can look rich for a month. Real wealth? Real wealth is invisible. Real wealth is silent. Real wealth is freedom. And freedom is worth infinitely more than approval. The people driving the regular cars, living in the modest houses, wearing the normal clothes, some of them have nothing, but some of them have everything that matters, and you can't tell from the outside. That's the power move, having enough money to buy whatever you want and choosing not to because you've optimized for freedom instead of appearance. Here's what nobody tells you about building wealth. It's boring. For years, it's incredibly boring. You're driving the same car everyone dismissed. You're living in the adequate apartment. And during that time, it feels like you're losing. But then something happens around year 10, year 15. The compound interest becomes visible. You realize you have more than your parents had at retirement. You realize you could stop working and be fine. Meanwhile, the people who were winning before, they're exactly where they were 10 years ago. Same debt, same stress. They look successful, but they're not free. So here's my challenge to you. For the next 30 days before every purchase, ask yourself one question. Is this making me richer or making me look richer? Because one of those builds wealth and the other destroys it. If this video changed how you think about money, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to go deeper on building real wealth, I've got more videos breaking down the actual strategies. Subscribe so you don't miss them. I'll see you in the next one.